Pastor Tolton, I wish that our listeners could see the people who are in the room. They can't do that. Well, why don't you tell us what friends you have with you in the room?
Absolutely. We are proud to have with us today Bishop Christopher Sunyonjo, who is from Uganda. Bishop Sunyonjo is a retired Anglican bishop who has had a renowned career there in Uganda and a real sensitivity to doing work with people on the margin, and has been probably the most outspoken cleric, the most outspoken straight advocate and ally of the LGBT community there on the ground in Uganda. And his center is St. Paul's Equality and Reconciliation Center. We're also joined by Frank Mugisha. He's the executive director of SMUG, Sexual Minorities Uganda. It is an umbrella organization for all of the LGBT organizations on the ground there. He's led the LGBT community. And we're joined by Reverend Canon Albert Ogle of San Diego, California. He was my traveling companion to Uganda, and we are doing this work together.
Well, let me start with Mr. Mugisha. That you're from Uganda. It would seem to me that the very existence of an organization like Sexual Minorities of Uganda would be incredibly dangerous. Tell us a little bit about what kind of resistance you've encountered in this conversation.
Sexual Minorities in Uganda became visible in 2007 when we held a press conference in the city and spent 45 days going on radio stations and TV stations telling people that we are LGBTI people and we want to be accepted and live like anyone else. But that time we received a lot of resistance from churches who organized and formed the Interfaith Rainbow Coalition Against Homosexuality. And they came in big numbers. They started asking our own communities, our own mothers, our own parents to fight us and stop accepting us.
Frank, if I might call you that, what made you do it? I mean, you knew you were walking into trouble and you knew you were going to get negative feedback. Why stay the course?
Well, at that moment, what was happening in Uganda is that the media was outing people who did not want to be outed. What was happening is that the policies were not responding to LGBT. For example, LGBT people are not included in national policies. There was no response at all. And we just wanted equal treatment like anyone else in Uganda. And we were calling on the media and telling them, if you want to write about homosexuality, come and ask us, who are visible and who you can see. If you want to write about stories of LGBTI people, ask us, and we are here. We are going to give you the right information instead of writing wrong information and outing people who don't want to be out.
Let me say a word to Bishop Sunyonjo. I'm interested, Bishop. Were you surprised by the extremely negative reaction by the churches, or did you expect that?
I was surprised because the churches, I believe, are for the oppressed people. But then the churches stood against me because I was on the side of the oppressed, rejected. I was surprised.
Do you see a way that things can change within the churches in Uganda?
I think there is a way, and that's why I'm standing on this side to try and bring about a change.
In relation to the Bahati bill particularly, will church leaders ever speak out in opposition to that bill?
I have not seen it. They have not spoken. I don't think they will speak out. No.
And what will you do with silent churches and the passion that's in your heart?
What I will do is to go on knocking, still knocking at the door, because I think one time they will open.
You think at one time it finally will open?
Yes, I do. I have a hope.
That's great. You couldn't keep going if you didn't.
No.
This is not just right on the subject, but I know you have retired. I don't imagine you expected your retirement to be this difficult.
No, I didn't at all. I expected, but because I know and I knew from the beginning that this is what was needed. People who came to me were suffering, and they needed somebody to speak out.
Bishop, I want you to answer this question, and then I want Frank Mugisha to answer the question as well. What will it take to change the attitudes and environment in the churches of Uganda regarding the LGBT community? Will it be a study of Scripture? Will it be what they see happening in terms of injustice on the human rights front? Will it be because of family members? What will bring about that change?
What will bring about, first of all, the change is the solidarity of other people with us who know that LGBT is not right. And then education. I believe there's a lot of education needed for people to understand that LGBT is not a sin in the way these people are talking about, and study the Bible more with more understanding. Because I see people are opposing LGBT because they really don't know that LGBT is just one of the phenomenon of the human sexuality.
Mr. Mugisha, will you also answer that? What do you think? What will bring about a major change in the lives of those people, whether in the church or not in the church in Uganda, regarding their negativity and demonization of LGBT people?
I think what we need is a lot of education. We need dialogue to talk about the issue, because the churches are not giving us an avenue to speak out. So we need a lot of progressive churches that can come and dialogue with the other churches so that they can listen to each other and create an avenue of speaking about the issue. And then they will understand, because some of them, they say they are ignorant. They are using their ignorance to stigmatize people and create all this homophobia. So we need the progressive churches to come and, I would say, teach them how to read the Bible correctly.
Now, I want to be sure I understood what you said, that you need progressive churches to help facilitate those conversations.
Yes.
Can they be churches from outside Uganda, or do they have to be churches in Uganda?
Churches within Uganda, but supported by churches from all over the world that are progressive.
Yes. Reverend Canon Ogle, let me ask you, you were along on this trip. As you watched what was unfolding in front of you, what came to mind as a way your own communion could help?
It's interesting because I worked in Uganda about half my time from 1991 to 1997. So I saw a huge change in the Church of Uganda that I remembered. I worked with Archbishop Okoth, who was very inclusive. We had 12 full-time workers working in the Church of Uganda to prevent the spread of AIDS. And the bishop, we gave out millions of condoms at that time. Abstinence, be careful, condoms only. And what I saw around 1996-97, the Christian right, you began to see changes in policies around things like AIDS, and abstinence only began to be taught. So I think our communion is really helpful. We believe in an inclusive church. We also believe in the value of human rights. And I think you have people like David Kato who says in public that homosexuals do not have human rights. Homosexuality is not a human right. And the church needs to speak out against this.
Reverend, let me ask you one other question, and I want to actually ask all of you this same question. Unfortunately, we can't give you access to talking to the church in Uganda or to religious people in Uganda. We can give you some avenue for speaking to religious community in the United States. If you have 1 minute to talk to the religious community in the United States about this situation, what do you want to say to them?
When I was in Uganda, there was a press story about a pastor from Georgia, Atlanta. He came over, is opening 50 specific churches that are anti-gay. His name is Carl Jenkins. I discovered that Carl has a very dark past. He tried to set fire to his lover and her children, spent 5 years in jail, was fined $100,000. In my denomination, I would have been unfrocked for that. The churches in this country, we need to be much more careful about what we're sending out as a message. The government needs to be much more careful about how money that's going through churches is being used to really make it very difficult for minority communities in places like Uganda just to live. And I think if churches could see the impact of this hatred, they would really bring pressure on their pastors to stop this.
Mr. Mugisha, what would you say in a minute statement to the religious community here in the United States?
First of all, I'd like to ask the religious community in the United States to support the progressive movements in Africa that are preaching love and give them moral support and courage to continue doing the work. I would also like to ask churches here to follow up the work that is being done by other churches outside America. Some of this work is hateful work, to try and follow up and hold them accountable.
Bishop Sunyonjo, what would you say to the religious community in America?
I would like to say that we should stop these people who are trying to plant the seed of hatred. Hatred kills, but love brings life. And our lives are in danger in Uganda. If this hatred continues, it might lead even to genocide, which we had seen in Rwanda. So let us love one another as we are asked by our Lord. Let us, as we love ourselves.
Boy, that is a good one, because I don't see any love anywhere in what we're talking about today. Reverend Tolton, you went, you saw, you've come back. I know you're a thoughtful person. What's next?
I think next is developing a coordinated strategy on the ground here for us to respond to this issue, given the fact that it's American evangelicals who are responsible for planting the seeds. And I think that there are a few things we need to do. One is we need to hold the religious right accountable for what they've done. I think we need to speak to the black church and be very clear that the time has come to stop allowing the religious right to pit African Americans against gay Americans, and that the black church's silence means that they are complicit. The black church has been a place where we have seen the advancement of civil rights, and now there's another opportunity for civil rights to again be advanced in the pulpits of the black church. And then I would say to those who are in the middle who are questioning, come out wherever you are and stand up with us. Don't wait until the situation gets worse in Uganda, but come out now and stand up for what you know in your hearts are right.
That's Reverend Joseph Tolton, pastor of Rehoboth Temple here in New York City. Gentlemen, with Reverend, I want to thank all of you for joining us today and giving us a better understanding of this nothing but tragic situation in Uganda. You have given us an insight. You have probably made some other people as angry as I am to hear that that's being done in the name of religion. And you probably also have inspired some others to get involved. I very much hope that's the case. We really appreciate you being here at State of Belief Radio, and we will stay in touch with you so we can continue to follow this story.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Go to stateofbelief.com to find out more about the show, listen to the show's archives, and sign up for our podcast. State of Belief Radio is a production of Interfaith Alliance.